Hello and welcome to Media Dialogues with Storyboard 18. I am Delshad Irani and today I am in conversation with Sumit Virmani, who is the EVP and Global Chief Marketing Officer of IT giant Infosys. As part of a series of conversations with future-forward marketers, Sumit is here to decode the major global trends in marketing and the AI-led changes. And as the brand custodian of Infosys, he will share his views on how Infosys is a brand disruptor. So on that note, hello and welcome to CNBC TV18 Sumit. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Hey, thanks, Delshad. Thanks for having me. I know we've been planning this for a while, but great to do this together.
Brilliant. And I want to kick off our conversation. Of course, I've read your columns that you've written for us and on topics that are, some of the biggest trends of the decade. Take purpose, for example. Brand love is something that also you've written about and spoken about. So let me start there, Sumit, because what we've seen in the past few years is also a little bit of a backlash against these ideas, stemming from various reasons. But there's a certain abstractness for a few people around about these ideas. And so how do you make something like purpose, something like brand love? How do you make these concepts, these approaches to marketing real, tangible, and help customers see the impact, help the brand, the business, but also very importantly, get your board on board with these ideas?
There's always been this debate and questions around purpose or promise, purpose or performance, which wins. And I don't think it's a question of or, it's a question of and. It always has to be purpose and promise, purpose and performance. And I'll explain as to why I'm saying what I'm saying. At the end of the day, purpose articulates the why of your existence. That's the deep understanding that a brand or an organization have as to why they exist in the world. And every organization goes through a process of articulating that purpose, and that is the reason why whatever you articulate as your message on the poster has to be a deep rooted belief that you walk the talk on every single day. So as long as brands are walking the purpose talk, I think there'll be very little dissonance between purpose and performance, because data over decades have shown that deeply purpose-driven companies outperform the market consistently over a long period of time. But that's where the authenticity of that purpose matters a great deal. What is a brand? Brand is basically an emotional bridge between an organization and its consumer. It's the emotional connect that is forged. And because that emotional connect leads to a strong relationship, strong familiarity, we often go again and again and engage with that brand. So for brands to really foster that brand love over a period of time, in addition to, of course, having a deep-rooted belief system which gets articulated in purpose, there has to be a sense of consistency. Because why do you and I love Apple? Why do we? Because every single time we actually use an Apple product or buy an Apple product, it's great. Why do we love Nike? Because we believe in the idea of just do it. So my sense simply is, yes, for brands to truly own that mind space in a consumer head, they have to have an authentic purpose and a consistent walking of that purpose. Now, if you do that, it'll automatically lead to higher performance, automatically lead to higher premium. And when that happens, convincing a board is not so tough.
Tell me, in your view, what are perhaps the biggest marketing and media trends that you have your eye on, and something that we should keep our eye on for the coming years?
Gen AI will be the biggest disruption most marketeers would see in their lifetime. And that presents a great opportunity or a great threat depending on how you look at it.
How are you looking at it?
Oh, we live and breathe technology day in and day out, and by virtue of being an early mover in this space, by virtue of actually spending the last 18 to 24 months making Infosys itself an AI first organization, we've had a deep approach to experimentation with technology. We've already launched, we've embraced AI in a big way within our marketing framework. We've already launched multiple campaigns on Gen AI. Some of it in the sports world, we've adapted it across the life cycle. We can talk more about that. But clearly, I think we see Gen AI to be a massive amplifier of human potential and massive amplifier for marketers around the world. Coming back to your question on other trends, as you know, the last couple of years, while India has been a bright spot in the global economy, the economic growth globally has been a challenge.
Right.
Most parts of the world are struggling with growth, and as a result, marketers are struggling to ensure that they have a much stronger contribution to the growth agenda of the organization, and that's a big expectation that businesses have from their marketing teams, and a marketer globally should be actually keeping a strong eye on how they're not just contributing to short-term growth agenda, but also preparing the organization for the rebound when the long-term growth comes back. So therefore, the big balance in short-term and long-term. And I would say the other big piece, which we already touched upon right at the beginning, is this whole debate on purpose and the larger sustainability ESG agenda. Because again, there's been a lot of conversation around that, and once again, I think it's in some sense a testing moment for marketers and brands around the world. Because if you deeply believe in the idea, it is core to your being, then you got to continue walking the talk. But if it is something which is a passing fancy, then it has a strong chance it's going to come back and hurt you. So that's really, I would say, are the top 2 or 3 big things that marketers around the world are consumed by. Of course, there's a dimension of what this means for marketing talent itself.
Right.
And as we nurture global teams, that is something to be kept in mind.
But we'll stay on the subject of AI for a bit, Sumit, because there is just so much. There's so much, and there's this sort of acceleration of work on the content side. We're seeing so much happening, but how do you then sort of make sense of all this frenzy and the scale, especially what we saw with ChatGPT and Gen AI, again, separating signal from noise. How do you do that as a global marketer and, running these global teams all over the world? Give me a sense of what it's like.
So, Dicha, if you look at the journey of tech evolution in marketing over the last several years, ever since digital has become the foundation of marketing for many years, and a MarTech stack is what marketers around the world can't live without, especially if they have to focus on short-term performance marketing. The way I see it is, just like any other technology that's impacted marketers over the years, there will be a lot of noise, and then there'll be very valuable, rather invaluable pieces of innovation that are going to completely change the game for a marketer. And that's where I believe Gen AI is not an incremental shift for marketers, a disruptive one. I'll give you an example of why I say that. If you look at the life cycle of marketing, a lot of the conversation early on when Gen AI came into being, in many research that came alongside for marketing, I talked about how marketing is one function that's going to be the most disrupted, and the biggest benefit marketing will be from the productivity dimension. Because yes, efficiency is something marketers always look for. We love to save dollars so that we can spend more money on something more important to us, and that is one benefit of AI and Gen AI in particular. That's a given. It is going to make marketers more efficient. It's going to make the routine task completely automated, and that is indeed a blessing. And then, especially in an environment of constraints globally that marketers are dealing with. But if you were to just stop at that, I think we'll be missing the larger picture completely. I really believe that the true amplifier that Gen AI will enable is effectiveness and experience. Because you talked about this conversation right up front in terms of how do you really talk about the value of marketing to the board. And I've been a very passionate advocate for that over the years, and I've written about that for one of your columns as well. That most of the times marketers are actually stuck in a world of their own,
Absolutely.
where we like to measure things that make us feel uh, uh, great about certain metrics that only marketeers understand, whether it's share of voice, whether it's number of clicks, whether it's uh, reach of a specific campaign, etc. And they are great, they are undoubtedly great. But the biggest opportunity is attribution of those marketing metrics to business performance. And one of the reasons why we've struggled with that over the years, because technology has had it limited correlation, data has been distributed across the organization. But today you have a powerful tool that can actually stitch, if your systems and data are stitched together at the back end of the organization, it can actually scan both structured and unstructured data and help you drive sharper targeting. Finally, the promise of personalization that we've been talking about for a decade
Absolutely.
can actually become a reality. So that's the true potential of Gen AI. And think about experience. Possibly one of the least talked about dimension of AI. And I really believe that Gen AI has the potential to completely democratize creativity. I mean, wouldn't we love for our fans to participate, for our consumers to participate in the brand creativity journey? Wouldn't we all marketers love that? Finally, it's possible. With Gen AI, you can
At
actually
scale.
provide the guardrails around which brands can invite millions of consumers to come in and share the brand love. I mean, you know what Coca-Cola did with Real Magic, what
Right.
we have done with Rafa Forever. I think there's so many examples out there where campaigns like that and scale like that was not possible but for the advent of AI. So clearly, I believe it's a great opportunity. Yes, there'll be a lot of noise. Yes, there are a lot of concerns that you have to keep in mind as well, especially the dimension around responsible AI, ethics, guardrails, and if you really have to embrace it, you have to embrace it by understanding and putting in appropriate guardrails so that you actually are not just uh, promoting your brand, but also ensuring that you don't have a reputational repercussion as a result of misuse of Gen AI.
And that is a real concern, of course. But the good thing is that, unlike social media, where these conversations started happening very later on, when we experienced the downsides of social media, with AI, what I'm seeing is these conversations are happening at the start,
Oh, you're
which is
absolutely
which
right.
is a
You're
good thing.
absolutely right. In fact, this is one place where regulations are keeping pace. You're seeing multiple geographies, multiple regulators around the world coming up with their guardrails around AI.
Right.
What to use? In fact, today, as marketers think about it, there are you don't just have to use publicly available models like which are from a consumer dimension that people use. You actually have an opportunity to use what we call narrow transformers. Now I'm getting into a little bit of technical details. I mean, well,
Why not?
uh, after
We
all,
are
you're
at the
speaking to a
center.
tech marketer.
Yes.
Uh, these narrow transform models actually help you train the AI models on your data. So you're not having any contamination, you're not having any hallucination, and you're actually having appropriate guardrails built in. So it's truly delivering output that is already checking your brand guidelines box. That's ensuring that nobody will be able to actually enter prompts that you will regret tomorrow. It takes care of all that, and that's the advantage of leveraging an appropriate model for your requirement.
Your sports marketing initiatives, for instance, Infosys really dialed that up. And so tell me a little bit about, the evolution of that journey on the sports marketing front. What are some of the key initiatives, your top initiatives that have worked for the brand, and whatever objectives you set for it?
Well, first of all, I'm rather fortunate to be working for an organization that gets the idea of short term versus long term, that believes in the idea of investment in a brand, and for 4 decades repositioning the brand for the digital age. The idea simply was that the world has to know us not just for the great work we do on the efficiency side of things, but the great work that we are doing leveraging digital technology for our clients the world over. We were at the forefront of driving growth and experience for our clients, not just efficiency. So the idea was we really needed a platform to be able to showcase the brand in action driving these kinds of transformation, we realized that sports is one dimension that actually brings the world together. It brings the passions together, and we literally crisscross boundaries to join in celebrating the success of sports. On this journey around 8 years ago, and we were thinking about that, we said, okay, you know what, we need to actually pick a sport that becomes a platform for our brand showcase, but more importantly, it also becomes a platform for a tech showcase. So we ended up picking tennis because for multiple reasons.
Right.
Of course, it helped that it was the most watched individual sport in the world, and it was not extremely evolved when it came to leveraging technology for engagement, be it fans or be it players. So it just ended up being a choice that checked many of the objectives that we had outlined at that point of time. Over the years, I think, I don't know how much of a tennis fan you are, but 8 or 10 years ago, if you were actually watching a tennis match or being one of the Grand Slams broadcasted live into your homes, the only two stats that you will actually come across during the entire game would be the scores and the speed serve. So the only two stats that any of the billion fans around the world will actually come across. But the world has changed over the last 8 years. People are not watching sport in their living rooms. They're watching sports on their mobiles, on the go,
It's not
on
linear.
multiple
It's not,
screens.
yeah,
It's
absolutely.
multidimensional. Plus, if you look at the millennial generation or Gen Alpha in particular, they are actually multitasking as they go along. They're not doing one thing at a time, and they like to be involved in their sport. So they wanted to understand which player is performing best under pressure, which player is able to actually recover from love 40, what's the spin of the serve, what's the angle of the serve, who wins what's the win rate, what's the pressure point, so there are like a million statistical points that today are possible because Infosys has completely reimagined the game of tennis globally, and that's where our digital technology has been at the forefront. Imagine the highlights package today. We were all forced to watch the highlights that will come at 6:32 to 6:47. But today, as a fan, if I so choose, the entire highlight package is actually delivered in less than 1 minute after the game is over with zero human intervention using Infosys technology. Most tennis players around the world did not have access to deep analytics because only the topmost players could afford a statistician who could actually sit next to them and analyze the game for them. After Infosys delivered the tech on the ATP Tour website itself, each one of 3,000 players on the circuit today have access to video analytics on demand. That to me is the power of tech that Infosys has democratized and truly made tennis a sport that is at the cutting edge of tech around the world. And that's something that showcases to our audience what Infosys can do at scale for a sport like that. So it can certainly do some of it for their businesses as well.
Your competitors also in different sport, whether it is F1 or running. What are you measuring on your initiatives in tennis?
So for us, sports is just one of the many channels that we use to measure what we measure for success. So let me actually talk to you about how do we measure success of our marketing initiatives. So we have what we call as a brand and business impact framework, which is something we've created in conversation, in partnership with the business heads. So this is not something we've dreamt of in a little very lovely marketing flow like this. But the idea simply was that under the brand impact framework, we have measurements like awareness, consideration, preference, which is more long-term in nature. Something that we measure over a period of time vis-a-vis our competitors, vis-a-vis the key goals we have set for ourselves and how we are progressing on them year on year. So that's what we call the brand impact framework. The business impact framework is something more short-term, which is largely all about how marketing is contributing to the growth agenda of the organization. What kind of leads we are feeding into the funnel, what kind of win rate we are impacting on programs that marketing is a part of. So it's very, very clearly measurable success criteria that impacts the business. So coming back to tennis, it's no different. There's a dimension of tennis that feeds our brand goals, and there's dimension of tennis that feeds our business goals. and we actually measure them on both dimensions.
You are one of the world's most influential CMOs. Tell me, what would your advice be for those perhaps aspiring to, be a global CMO one day and one of the most influential in the world?
I just happen to be the custodian of the brand. What gets truly recognized globally is the work that I am riding of the last 40 years of effort that has been put in, and the organization enables and has a deep belief in the idea of a brand being a core lever for business growth, and that's why we're possibly seeing the success that we have seen. Having said that, to your question on the advice that I have, uh, the first and the foremost thing I would say is a brand is business. The brand just does two things: where to go and how to win. In fact, this is Roger Martin's definition, not mine. I just happily have borrowed it after I've met him. Uh, so, as long as you believe in the idea that brand is about enabling the business to play and win, you will stay close to the business objectives while leveraging the science of branding. So that to me is stay close to the business impact as you think about the larger brand. That will be one. Stay very very close to technology, because today technology is at the heart of almost every business in the world.
Absolutely.
And our function is in the midst of a massive disruption. If you embrace and make technology and GenAI in particular your ally, is going to serve you well to truly elevate the brand and the differentiation in the marketplace. And finally, we started with this topic, so I'll end with this topic. Make the effort of outlining what your purpose is, because the generation that currently is consuming the brand, or the generation that's, or we call it the Gen Alpha, that is actually coming up, uh, these people deeply believe in the idea of brand associations, and they love to work with brands which they can relate to in a more meaningful way. And if your brand happens to have a more holistic purpose, your chances of differentiation and growth are much stronger vis-a-vis the rest of the industry. So yes, those are the three things I would leave you with.
Well, thank you. That gives us a lot to think about, Sumit. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so
Pleasure
much for having
chatting
me.
with you, like always. Thank you.